After utter domination by the San Francisco 49ers over the last 3 years, the Seahawks today found themselves in Santa Clara, coming off a bye week. Lots of drama surrounding the team this week. 2.5 minutes left, down 17-13. They drive down the field. Geno Smith runs for the score, wins the football game. The Seahawks, even their record at 5-5, they are squarely in the divisional race now in the NFC West. They get the monkey off their back. A signature win for Mike Macdonald and Geno Smith. One of the biggest wins the Seahawks have recorded in many years. We're going to talk about it today. We're going to get your questions and comments as well. This is Seahawks Forever. I'm Dan.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Head on over to BetUS and sign up for your new account today. You'll get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits up to $2,000. Use promo code YouTube150. Also sponsoring today's show, the folks at Manscaped. Their new product, the Chairman Pro, the electric foil shaver. This thing, if you're tired of paying for professional-style shaves, making an appointment, having to wait weeks out, you can do this now in your own home. This thing is incredible. I have one. I have never been able to use an electric shaver successfully. This thing is incredible. Whether you want a smooth professional style shave or you just want to keep that stubble, it has interchangeable heads. And right now, if you head over to manscaped.com, they will give you 20% off your first order plus free shipping using the promo code Seahawks. All right, you guys. Are you with me? Like, that was fun, right? We're going to talk about all aspects of that game today. The Seahawks beating the 49ers 20-17. First win over the 49ers since early December of 2021. And there's a lot to talk about in this game. A lot of good. There was some bad. But we're going to talk about big picture, right? If you watch the show during the week leading up to this game, then you know that I tried to go into this game with a new perspective, right? Just new expectations. That maybe this was a team that was a little bit more leaning to the side of rebuilding and having to put some pieces in place, having to get on the same page with the front office and the coaching staff and schemes, the assistant coaches having never worked together before, the entire coaching staff being hired late in the process. Lots of talk during the bye week about John Schneider's mistakes, the ineffectiveness of the free agent class as a whole. And then we had the drama leading up to the game. On Monday, the team released Terrell Dodson, their leading tackler, starting weak side linebacker. On Friday, we learned that Connor Williams, their starting center, big name, coming off an ACL, but a big free agent, signed late in the offseason, played every snap at center for the Seahawks this year, retires on Friday. And so we go into this game with a lot of unknowns and a lot of moving parts and a lot of variables. On defense, Tyrese Knight, the fourth-round pick out of UTEP, starting in place of Dodson next to Ernest Jones, who's only been on the team for the last 2 games. On offense, the return of Abe Lucas, after essentially a year and a half being out, came back late last year, played a couple of games, wasn't himself, had to have surgery, long process to get him back. They managed his snap count today, didn't play the entire game. Olu Oluwatimi, the 5th-round pick out of Michigan last year, stepping up to play center and playing every snap at center in place of Connor Williams. Meanwhile, just the storyline coming into this game, there were multiple storylines. Mike Macdonald not really recording in his first 9 games as a rookie head coach a signature win. Geno Smith coming into this game with a lot of questions about his performance, especially in light of the turnovers, the really bad turnovers against the Rams in that 26-20 overtime loss going into the break. His future in question. Never having beaten the 49ers. And the Seahawks end up winning this one 20-17 with Geno running for the winning score from 11, 12 yards out with 26, 27 seconds left on the clock after a couple of series after one of his worst interceptions as a Seahawk. One that at the time, and I know we've talked about this before, we've seen this before, tweeted about it when it happened, or whatever we call it on Blue Sky now, because that's where I lived during the game. Shout out to those of you joining me today from Blue Sky. One of the worst interceptions he's thrown. A lot of the interceptions up to this point this season, you could excuse away. Dropped football, JSN, the first pick against the Rams. Arm being hit, the first pick, the first throw of the year against the Denver Broncos, and then the play, Jared Verse hitting his arm against the Rams in the red zone last week. DK Metcalf running the wrong route against the 49ers in that Thursday night game, right? You could excuse a lot of those away. In a big picture, you could even excuse a lot of it in the sense that the offensive line and the play of that unit just not being up to par, and Geno being under constant pressure. In the Rams game, a great example. He throws the 3 picks, 60% pressure rate from the Rams in that game. Then you come into this game with all the variables and the unknowns, and Oluwatimi starting his first game since last year against Arizona. Lucas playing his first game in almost a calendar year. And then the likely suspects, right? The 2 guards, Anthony Bradford, and the struggles he's had, Laken Tomlinson, and what he did. To me, here was the key to the game. And you guys should see my notes. They're not great. They're not very well organized. I mean, this is what we're talking about here, right? Like that, yeah. You should see what my tickets look like when I write an order as a server. To me, going into this game, and this was something that if you follow me on Blue Sky at Seahawks Forever or Twitter, same handle, getting off to a decent start was a huge key coming into this game. Did the math coming into this one, the last 5 regular season games, because people forget this, but the wild card matchup a couple of years ago against the 49ers, Seahawks had a good first half. And then the 49ers pulled away in the second half. But the 5 regular season games dating back to December 2021, the losing streak, an average score of roughly, if you round, 17-3 at halftime. San Francisco leading. Seahawks just can't get off to a good start. The other storyline that was consistent among all those games is explosive plays. Just 49ers gouging the Seahawks defense. Christian McCaffrey with big runs, big pass plays. Big plays in the passing game. I'm going to screen share here a little bit. Let's just take a look at some of these. Let me get some of this stuff off the screen for you so we can see this. Hold on here. Where are we at? And let's just get rid of this. I mean, the Seahawks held the 49ers in check. And I know there was parts of the first half that were frustrating to watch. The first drive in particular. Seahawks win the toss, elect to defer, start on defense, force a 3 and out. It's a great way to start the game. And then the Seahawks offense doesn't really get anything done on their first drive. They get a field goal out of it. They take a lead, but it's just a 3-0 lead. And then the 49ers proceed to go on an 11-play. Let's take a look at this. Take a look at this, the first drive. The Seahawks field goal drive, 9 plays, 44 yards. And then the 49ers take over after that, 12 plays, 71 yards, 8 minutes and 3 seconds. So it looks like a lot of what we've seen before. But it was all done, like, what's the old saying, right? Death by a 1,000 pinpricks. It was all check down stuff. I mean, Greg Olsen, the former Seahawk tight end, doing color commentary for Fox today, talked about it a lot during the game. That this is how Mike Macdonald schemes a defense and calls a defense. He wants to give you the underneath stuff, but he wants to eliminate explosive plays, right? Limit the deep shots, get pressure on the quarterback, create turnovers. There was one turnover in this game, Jonathan Hankins with the interception off the Devin Witherspoon tip. But it was just, it was a lot of checkdowns. It was a lot of short completions. It didn't feel great in the first half. And a lot of that was because the 49ers were converting third downs. But let's take this away here. It felt like the Seahawks from the get-go, that the defense we saw against the Rams, more assignment sound, played their gaps better, rallied to the football better, tackled better, carried over. And that the changes that we saw showed up immediately. First of all, let's talk about a couple of things, right? Let's talk about some of the good and some of the bad. Ernest Jones is a revelation at middle linebacker for the Seahawks, wearing the green dot for the first time today after Dodson being released. He's a player, and he fits perfectly into what Mike Macdonald does. And it absolutely, I don't care. We can have discussions, and we did earlier this week. Rob Staten being on the show with me, he was concerned about the trade and giving up as much as they did to get Jones, that they lost leverage going into negotiations in the offseason, trying to retain him as a free agent. Look, Jones has made it clear he wants to find a long-term home. He likes it here. He wants it to be here. The Seahawks want to keep him. That's why they made the trade. They're going to get that done. He is the ideal fit. The level of play today from Ernest Jones at middle linebacker is as good as we've seen in 4 or 5 years. And yeah, I know that includes some time that Bobby Wagner was patrolling the field, the middle of the defense for the Seahawks at middle linebacker. But doing so at his advanced age with some knee issues, not quite as explosive an athlete as he was when he was younger. Ernest Jones was outstanding today. And then the rookie Knight next to him announced his presence. I think it was the second play of the game, came up, made a big hit on a running play. He was all over the field today. Let's go back to this. Let's look at the tackle numbers. Ernest Jones, 13 tackles today to lead the team, 6 of them solo. Tyrese Knight, second on the team, 10 tackles, 4 solo and a quarterback hit. He didn't look like a rookie. Like some of the concerns around him coming out of UTEP were, great athlete, would make some splash plays, but very raw, undisciplined at times, out of position at times, questions about his coverage ability. Like, he didn't look like a raw rookie who was over his skis. That we might be seeing. Whereas, yeah, you can take the cynical view, as many have leading up to this game, and you can criticize John Schneider for the fact that their 2 moves this offseason at the linebacker position were to 4 moves, I guess, aggregately. You let Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks walk. You signed Jerome Baker, Terrell Dodson. Now you give up on both those guys. They're not on the roster. You trade Jerome Baker away three weeks ago to get Jones. You cut Terrell Dodson. It's an upgrade. These 2 guys can play. They were better. And the things that the San Francisco 49ers do and that Kyle Shanahan offense does put so much stress on inside linebackers and their ability to come up and hit in the run game, to rush the quarterback when called upon, to drop into coverage, all those crossing routes. It's a tremendous amount of stress. Those 2 guys were outstanding today. They really were, but they weren't alone. There were some other outstanding performances on defense. Devin Witherspoon, I think, played his best game of the year, without a doubt. 3 passes defensed, 8 tackles. He was aggressive. When he hit guys, he did it with a purpose. He knocked the ball away that ended up being the Hankins interception. Had another one of his passes defensed on third down to stop a drive. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I thought Kobe Bryant, once again, showed what he can do at that strong safety position. 5 tackles. He had a tackle for loss. I don't think Rayshon Jenkins is getting his starting job back when he comes back, and he's eligible to come off the injured list next week. I thought Reek Woolen was solid. I thought Leonard Williams came out in this game and established himself early on. I think Byron Murphy, even though he didn't really fill up the stat sheet, There was a sack at one point by Draymond Jones. There was one particular series where Draymond Jones dominated it like he did a couple of weeks ago. And the sack that Jones got was because Murphy collapsed the pocket, prevented Purdy from being able to step up in it. And so it allowed Jones, with the angle he took around Colton McKivitz, to get to Purdy. Boye Mafe, I kind of thought was a little quiet in this game, but he came up big a couple of times. Some huge performances on defense. Defense looked really good. We're talking about back-to-back games now. Against, what did we hear when Mike Macdonald was hired? He's Sean McVay of defense. He's that level of brain on that side of the ball. And a lot of the analysis, and we all kind of drank the Kool-Aid, and we all got excited about this, was we get to see Mike Macdonald go up against Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan now twice a year. Well, now he's faced him each once in back-to-back games. Really slowed down that LA Rams defense that shredded the New England Patriots today. Much to my chagrin as a fantasy football manager, because I decided not to play Matt Stafford in this game. Absolutely shredded that defense. Seahawks slowed him down until overtime. And then today against the 49ers, first time Mike Macdonald facing Kyle Shanahan, I think sends a message. Sends a big message. And the offense was kind of stop and start. It was inconsistent throughout the game. Still some issues up front on offense. I think at halftime, they'd given up 2 sacks and 5 quarterback hits by halftime. Even though, it was interesting, as I was watching this game, I spent more time watching the offensive line in this game than I did the periphery than I usually do. Usually my eyes are on the quarterback, right? Because I wanted to watch the performances of Olu Oluwatimi and Abe Lucas. I thought Oluwatimi, just watching it live, can't wait to dig into the tape later in the week and watch the All-22. I thought he was better than Connor Williams. There was the one bad snap that was high. A lot of people really got on him for that. I think Geno should have handled it. I thought he was really stout, and he looked better against power than Connor Williams looked. And I wonder if that kind of played into Connor Williams' decision to retire. I know that there's some speculation it had to do with some personal matters, some family matters. But I think from a football perspective, he was just getting his ass kicked. He was getting beat. He was getting pushed back into Geno Smith. He wasn't the player he was before the injury. And power wasn't really his game before then anyway. He was more of kind of an outside zone athlete, second level guy. But I thought Olu really stood up and looked solid in this game. Coming out of the bye, the team looked more disciplined. 4 penalties for 20 yards. That's by far and away the best game that this team has had from a discipline standpoint this season, and really dating back the last couple of years. It'd be hard to find another game where they were that clean. And then, before we get to that, we're going to talk about the Seahawks quarterback in a second. But when you look at the 49ers, usually what has beat the Seahawks are the usual suspects. Brock Purdy being really, really efficient. Here, I've got it right. Hold on. Brock Purdy, during that 5-0 run against the Seahawks, has never lost to him. 11 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then in that Thursday night game, just a month ago, 18 out of 28 for 255 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Really efficient. Today, 21 out of 28 for 159 yards, a touchdown, an interception. And he ran for a touchdown as well. And he was sacked twice. Passer rating of 85.3. Christian McCaffrey, 19 carries, only 79 yards. Seahawks held him in check. Only caught 4 balls for 27 yards. Did not get in the end zone. The best player for the 49ers today was Juwan Jennings. 10 catches, 91 yards, a couple of big third down conversions in that game. That was frustrating to watch at the time. But outside of that, like Deebo Samuel was a non-factor. Interestingly enough, given the fact that the Adam Schefter report yesterday that the Seahawks in 2019 before had a plan going into the draft where they wanted to draft Deebo Samuel and DK Metcalf, and it didn't quite work out because the Raiders reneged on a deal made the night between the first round and the second round. We might talk about that report later in the week and what it might have meant and where it came from and who leaked it and what their motivation might have been. Deebo Samuel, four catches, 22 yards, one carry for a loss of 1 yard. There was a point in the game where I thought, is he hurt? Is he on IR? Did I miss something? I know he had the incident last week where he got pissed with the field goal kicker that missed a field goal and he swiped at his helmet. And there were questions about his attitude in that locker room. He was a non-factor today. Ricky Pearsall, first-round draft pick of the Seahawks. 0 catches today. Now, George Kittle was out in this one. That played a part. But I thought this was a symbol, I think, an example of what a Mike Macdonald defense could be. Really, really impressive. Now, I want to talk about Geno Smith, and then I want to get to your comments and questions, and we're going to talk about some big picture stuff, okay? So, Geno, final numbers today, 25 out of 32, 221 yards, no touchdown passes, 1 interception, a rating of 82.4, and he ran for a touchdown. That doesn't seem that impressive, and it kind of seems in line with how he's played against the 49ers. He's had some games where he's made some plays, I think played better than maybe some of the public perception has been, played better than the box score at times, if that makes any sense. But he hasn't had a great game against the 49ers, and this wasn't either. But this game might have summed up everything you ever would need to know about Geno Smith. Because while he made plays and he made throw after throw, some tight window throws, some creative throws, really accurate throughout the day, he had an interception late in the third quarter that was as bad of an interception as he's thrown in his Seahawks career. Let's try to find the drive here. Here it is. 1:03 left in the third quarter. The Seahawks are within a point. It's 7-6, which is the halftime score. Still 7-6 at the end of the third quarter. It had turned into one of those games, just kind of a slugfest, grinded out game. First down, Ken Walker, 2-yard run. 2nd and 8, Geno Smith throws the ball to A.J. Barner. Should have been a first down. Barner drops it. Side note, absolutely love, and I tweeted this during the game, love the upside of A.J. Barner, just 22 years old. He's such a good blocker that he's relegated Pharaoh Brown, who is one of our fairly expensive free agent signings in the offseason, to the bench. Has been valuable in the passing game. He had 2 drops today. He needs to clean that up. Love his upside, needs to clean that up. Should have been a first down. So then Geno comes back, maybe off of that play, thinking we got to get something done. It's the end of the third quarter. Our defense is playing great. I don't want to give the ball back to him right now. Let's get a lead. It's 3rd and 8 at the Seattle 17. He has to scramble out of the pocket, scrambles to his left, and we've seen him make some outstanding throws doing that before, but this one intended for JSN, interception right into the gut of the DB, interception by Isaac Yadam. As bad an interception as he's thrown all year. And at the time I tweeted it out, like, can't have it. Can't have it. Can't. Tweeted a buddy of mine, said, I'm done with Geno. Turned to my partner, said, I'm done with Geno. Like, those are emotional things that we live with in football games. And then what we saw after that, the Seahawks defense comes on the field with a short field. And this was really the key to the football game. So the 49ers got the play sheet up here right now. The 49ers take here, guys, got to put my glasses on for this one. The 49ers take over at the Seahawks 18-yard line. Up 1 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. They gain 9 yards on first down. They get stuffed on second down. 3rd and 1, McCaffrey gets the first down. 1st and 10, a Purdy scramble, gets 8 yards, but there's a holding call. 1st and 20, then there's this false start call. 1st and 25. Seahawks end up holding on 3rd and 15 from the Seattle 21. Purdy checks it down to McCaffrey. He gets stuck right after the play by Tariq Woolen. They hold the 49ers to a field goal. Makes it 10-6. That gave the Seahawks a chance. And now we wait and see. Now the question is, can Geno answer? And this is where, before we talk about how it ended, I have made the comparison in the past between Gino Smith and Matt Hasselbeck. And here, I'm going to move out of the way. Like, I was such a big Hasselbeck fan. Any of you who know me or don't, that football in the background right there is a Matt Hasselbeck autograph football. Love the player and spent many, many years debating his worth. And it was all kind of along the same lines of what we see about Geno now. Middle of the pack quarterback. You know, you want to argue if he's top 10 or not, fine. Top 15, fine. But I would always argue with people that thought that we needed to move on from Matt Hasselbeck, that provide me with a list of quarterbacks in the league that you'd rather have than him. And then how are you going to get one of those guys? You're not. So the answer to that would be, well, it's time to draft a guy. Because that's such a known quantity. That's so easy. Look at the failure rate of drafted quarterbacks. And it's even worse. It's getting worse. We've talked about this. If you haven't watched this episode yet, it breaks my heart how low the views are for this particular episode, because I think it's one of the greatest conversations I've ever had the opportunity to have with someone. Max Brown joined me on the show Monday, played quarterback at a high level in college, is a college football analyst now. We had a really deep conversation about quarterback development and quarterback drafting and whose responsibility is it to develop quarterbacks, college or pro, and what are the pitfalls of that, and why is it such an inexact science? Why is there such a high failure rate? Go watch that episode. I feel the same way about Geno. And this is why it's tough. And you go back and forth, because the romantic idea of drafting a quarterback, having a young quarterback on a rookie contract, be able to win games for you, and then allow you to go out and use that $40 to $50 million in cap space you're not spending on a franchise quarterback to fill out other weak spots in your roster and add impact. I get it. But go back and look at, I did it the other day, the 21 and 22 draft classes, 19 quarterbacks drafted in those two classes. 2 of those 19 are currently starting for their teams. Only 6 are even still on their rosters. And we're talking about some of those guys that aren't top 5 picks. It's an inexact science. But it became clear to me today, as I was cursing Geno's name after that pick, that some quarterbacks, you just have to live with the ups and downs. It was that way with Hasselbeck. We would see it. It was this way with Russell. You all can remember a game or 2 or 3 or 4 where he threw a really bad pick or took a really bad sack, made a bad decision, scrambled around when he didn't need to, took a loss, took us out of field goal range, cost us points. And he would come back and respond and win the football game. Today was Geno's chance to do that against a team he had never beat before. So how does he answer after the Seahawks go out and hold the 49ers to a field goal from the 17 after that horrible pick? 11 plays, 70 yards, 6 minutes, touchdown drive. Seahawks take a 13-10 lead with the Ken Walker score. The other thing I thought that helped to make a statement that I loved about this drive was with the Seahawks at 2nd and goal at the San Francisco 1, they just got really physical. They brought Jalen Sundell in as an eligible player and played him at fullback, the backup center and tackle. And they ran it off left guard to Ken Walker. Physical play. They didn't try to get too cute. And they take the 13-10 lead at the time. Now, the 49ers come right back and respond themselves. And this is where you start to think it was frustrating to watch. Like, this team just has our number. We can't beat this team. As much as I talked on this show, and you saw it leading up to the game, about changing expectations, taking a big picture look, not worrying about wins and losses the rest of the year. Just, how's this team developing? How many pieces are in place? Can we tighten up the schemes? Are we going to go into the offseason feeling like we're building something? Against this team, it didn't take too long for it to hit me that it's different. I don't know. I think I got pissed 4 or 5 minutes into this one. It's just different in a rivalry, right? But the 49ers answer 14 plays, 70 yards, 8 minutes, 52 seconds. They just methodically, little by little, move it down the field. A couple of big third down conversions. The 3rd and 11 to Juwan Jennings. The 2 3rd and 11s to Juwan Jennings. And they ended up taking the lead 17-13 with 5 minutes and 37 seconds left. Seahawks take over after that, go 30. It takes them 10 plays to go 33 yards. They go forward on 3rd and short and 4th and short. And this was a key moment. And this felt like one of those moments in the game when it just wasn't going to happen today. 3rd and 1, Geno Smith with the quarterback sneak. He kind of gets airborne. Wish he hadn't. In the moment, I said, on a sneak, look, you got to keep your feet on the ground, keep driving. He let himself go airborne. It looked, watching it live, like he was going to get the first down. They spotted him short. Mike Macdonald had the challenge flag in his hand at the time, didn't throw it. Said in the postgame that they had heard that New York looked at it, and it didn't sound like it was going to be reversed, so he held on to the flag. He knew they were going to go forward on 4th and 1 anyway. They go to Zach Charbonnet off left guard for no gain. It gets stopped. They reviewed that one too, came up short. This series, in the history between these two teams the last 3-4 years, felt like maybe the game was slipping away. But then the defense came up again. Held the 49ers to a 5-play drive, 21 yards, only took 1:18 off the clock. Stuffed Christian McCaffrey for 1 yard on 1st and 10. Stuffed him. Kobe Bryant came up, a 1-yard loss on 1st and 10. Again, there was a penalty on the first play. A couple of incomplete passes from Brock Purdy. They stopped him. The defense stood up again. It felt for the first time this year like we're building a defense where, hey, we can get aggressive from time to time on going forward on 4th down occasionally on offense because we feel like our defense can stop them now. Like, I haven't had a chance to count all these, but very few explosive plays. When was the last time you remember playing the 49ers and not having any 30, 40, 50, 60-yard plays? Those did not happen in this game. And then that gives the ball back to Geno Smith with 2 minutes and 26 seconds left in the game. 1 timeout, the 2-minute warning, and they played this perfectly. Let's just go play by play just for the hell of it. 1st and 10. Geno, short right to DK Metcalf for 11 yards. They had to review it. He dragged his toe, got it inbounds. First and 10 again, Geno, short right to Ken Walker, gain of 5 yards. Second 5, short pass to Ken Walker, no gain. Third and 5, first down to Jackson Smith and Jigba, 8 yards to the 44. Then we get to the 2-minute warning. They didn't even have to use their timeout at that point. Didn't have to spike the ball. Really efficient up until that point. Coming out of the 2-minute warning, first and 10, Geno, short right, Jackson Smith and Jigba, 7 yards. Second and 3, incomplete pass. Third and 3, Jackson Smith and Jigba for 15. First and 10, Geno sacked by Leonard Floyd. Second and 13, Geno scrambles for 16 yards. And this is going to come into play in a couple of seconds here. Geno's mobility and athleticism is one of the coolest parts of his game because he doesn't use it that often. But when he does, it seems to be in the biggest moments and it seems to have the biggest impact. So first and 10, Seahawks finally call a timeout, 39 seconds left. First and 10, then from the 49ers 21, Geno to Jackson Smith and Jigba for 8 yards to the 13-yard line. And then on second and 2, they go no huddle. 12 seconds left in the game. Geno scrambles, scores easily from 13 yards out, touchdown, extra points good, 20-17. The 49ers run 2 plays. They have no shot. This was as big a win as we have seen the Seahawks record in the regular season. I don't know. Tell me in the comments. When was the last win as big as this? Let me do this. I want to get to all your comments and questions. A bunch of you are watching. I got a bunch of comments in the queue. Let's do this couple words from our sponsors, and then we'll come back and get your feedback. Let's go. Do you need to learn some better coping skills? This episode brought to you by BetterHelp. If you've ever considered therapy, give BetterHelp a try. This month is all about gratitude. Thanksgiving right around the corner. We spend time with family and friends. And as we get closer to New Year's, we tend to look back over the last year and take stock of where we are. How are things going for you? Do you need to learn some better coping skills? Is there something stressing you out? Do certain aspects of your life feel out of control? I know I feel that way at times, and it helps to turn outward and talk to somebody. And the great thing about BetterHelp is you can do it on your schedule, on your time, from the comfort of your own home. It is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire over at BetterHelp.com. They'll match you with a licensed therapist. If you don't think that is a great match, you can request another one and move on to another therapist at no additional cost. And right now, if you watch this program and you want to take advantage of this, maybe talk to somebody, head on over to betterhelp.com/forever, and they will give you 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/forever. And a big thank you to the folks at Doer for sponsoring the program. Doer is built for doing. That's DUER, with styles of stretch performance denim and lifestyle apparel for everyone in every season. I have a pair of their jeans and 2 of their flannel shirts. It's some of the most comfortable clothing that I own. I wear the jeans every day. There is 20% stretch incorporated in these jeans. They're incredibly comfortable. It's my go-to pant for Seahawks games. I am not kidding. They're versatile. They're comfortable enough to wear every day. They're antibacterial, meaning less washing. And they're made of temperature-regulating fabrics for moisture management. They're also made out of sustainable fabrics in a sustainable way. And right now, my listeners get 20% off your first purchase when you use this exclusive URL, shopdoer.com/forever. That's shopdoer, DUER.com/forever for 20% off your first purchase. All right, you guys, welcome back. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. Best way to support it. Share it. If you like what you're seeing, hit that thumbs up button. Hit the bell for notification of future episodes. All the other ways you can support the show are down in the description. Some of the best ways, though, super thanks, super likes, or even just sign up for YouTube Premium so you can watch without ads. So the Seahawks beat the 49ers today 20-17, breaking a 6-game losing streak. And now let's throw this back in here. The the NFC West that was already jammed up gets even closer. The Cardinals are on their bye this week. The Rams beat the Patriots to improve to 5-5. The Seahawks and 49ers now have beat each other once, so they are in a complete tie now. So you have a three-way tie between the Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers. The Cardinals leading the division at 6-4 on their bye this week. Of course, the Seahawks host the Cardinals next week in Seattle. The Cardinals team coming off a bye, right? It's the sixth time this year, or one of 6 times the Seahawks face a team either coming off their bye or coming off a Thursday game with extra time to prepare. Huge game. Seahawks have lost 4 straight at Lumen Field. They have to turn that around. How do you feel about that matchup heading into this one, this division? Look, this game saved the season in some ways. If the Seahawks had lost this game, if it had been the same game, but the Seahawks just came up slightly short on that last drive, didn't pull it off, I would still be sitting here talking to you about all the positives that I see. But we would probably be talking about a team on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs go. And on this show anyway, we would stop talking about the playoffs. They are squarely in this division race now, not just from a numerical standpoint, but because of what we saw on the field today. Some of the other performances I haven't really mentioned. I talked about Leonard Williams and how good he was. Byron Murphy, again, didn't throw up a lot of stats, didn't show up really heavily in the box score. But, man, you can see his impact. He didn't play in that first game on Thursday night against the 49ers, and it showed today. Like, this looked like old school 2013 to 2016 Pete Carroll run defense, where there just weren't huge holes, where guys were slowed down at the line of scrimmage. That Buffalo game, where it just seemed like the Bills were reestablishing the line of scrimmage 4 yards beyond where the ball was snapped from. That's a far cry from what we saw today. And it gives you a lot of reasons for hope moving forward. Indeed. Let's get to some of your comments and questions. Let's go back to the beginning. All right, you guys. Osiris says Geno had his day. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Happy for Geno to finally get that checked off his list. Also, that prediction by Greg Bell about the defense not coming together until November looks pretty accurate. Yeah, at the beginning of the season, he was on the show, and Bell asked Bell just what he thought about this team, the roster, and what he could glean, what he could feel about this coaching staff. And he said, I think they're going to be a pretty good team, but they're going to be a better team in November than they are in December. Spot on about that. X-Wing also says, if we can get Christian Haynes playing next year, even average play, get a left guard and a linebacker or 2 in the draft, I think we can dethrone the Niners and start winning the division again. I think the rest of this season is about checking boxes. How many glaring needs are you going to have going into next season? Before this game, you might have said, looking in particular at the offensive line, that you have 4 boxes left to check. Charles Cross is solid. Need to get him extended. I think they'll do that. He may never be an all-pro left tackle, but he's really good at a premium position. You got to keep him around. Connor Williams, when they signed him, I think the intent, as stated by both sides, was to end up extending him at the end of the season. He decides to walk away. So center's in need. Laken Tomlinson's a 1-year deal, declining player, wrong side of 30, even though he's played fairly solid the last few weeks. That's a box you have to check. Right guard, we know what's happened there, right? Christian Haynes couldn't win the job. Anthony Bradford, the penalties, the issues in pass protection, that's a box. And then right tackle, having to play your 4th string right tackle in Michael Jarrell, the 6th-round pick out of Findlay, not knowing what's going on with Abe Lucas. Look how things have changed now. What if Oluwatimi, and this is what I said after he was drafted, all through last year and in the offseason leading up to this season before the signing of Connor Williams. I thought Oluwatimi, based on what I saw on tape and everything that I read from people who I respect, guy is never going to be an all-pro because he just doesn't have that elite athletic upside. But I thought he had the look of a guy who's going to be a 10-year starter in the NFL. Solid player. That's what he looked like today to me. Again, only watching it live, right? We'll dig into the tape as the week goes on. But if that box is checked, you have a 5th-round pick on a rookie contract playing center for you, check. If Christian Haynes has to next year claim one of those 2 guard spots, right? Let's just assume that now. Let's be optimistic. Left guard or right guard, check. Abe Lucas today, they said they had him on a snap count. Early in the game, they were alternating him. He played the first drive. Michael Jarrell played the second drive. Lucas the third drive. But because of the time of possession dominance in the first half by the 49ers, Lucas was out there for that entire winning drive. And Mike Macdonald said after the game, he said, look, we played him more than we wanted to, but he came out of it okay. I didn't see him favoring the leg. I didn't see him limping. Was he a little less explosive or quick on his outside pass sets? Maybe. But going up against Nick Bosa until Bosa had to exit the game in the third quarter because that hip injury just got so bad, he held his own. He's an upgrade. If Abe Lucas can even be 80% of what we saw from him as a rookie, that's another box checked. So now you go into this offseason and maybe one good free agent offensive line signing gets it done, which frees up your 1st-round pick to do some other stuff, which could be really cool. And we'll talk about that at another time. Linebackers, I don't know, X-Wing. I mean, I respect your opinion. You're a great viewer of the show, and you're always in here making comments. But did you not like what you saw from Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight today? They still have Drake Thomas coming back. I mean, yeah, you want to draft another guy there. Maybe someone who's a little versatile, someone that could play off the edge and play inside linebacker. I've been looking, I don't want to give this away because I'm going to do something on it soon. I've been looking at a particular college player today that's 6'4", 235 pounds, really unique body style, can come off the edge, but also is great in coverage and plays inside off the ball linebacker. But he is directly blood related to another linebacker that Seahawks that played for the Seahawks previously and that Seahawks fans loathe the name of. So I'm not going to give that away. But yeah, you want to add to that position for sure. But I'm assuming that Ernest Jones is going to be back. I think he's so valuable to what they're going to build, they might even consider using the franchise tag on him. I don't think Ernest Jones is going anywhere. I think he's part of this team in 2025. The way all the playmakers were a part of this win is what was most encouraging. Loved the combination of what we saw from DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Said it last week when JSN had his big game, 180 yards receiving, couple of touchdowns. The pass chart, you remember the route chart was all over the place. He can do just about everything. DK isn't as wide open as far as the breadth of his skill set. He's a little more limited in what he can do, but what he does very, very well. I would prefer us get to a point where JSN is kind of that almost wide receiver number 1. He's the guy that's really putting stress on a defense, like running all the routes at every level of the field. And DK is the guy that you just have him doing what he does best, and he did it today. You know, you look at this combination, and JSN with 10 catches, 110 yards. DK, 7 catches, 70 yards. A couple of them big third down conversions. A couple of them contested catches. He's so strong. JSN had a big gain on an inside screen that I love the design of, something we haven't seen here before. It's something else I think needs to be talked about. Tyler Lockett, 2 catches in this game for 19 yards. Basically an afterthought. If you had any questions about a subject that we've talked about on the show numerous times in the last 2 months, that Tyler Lockett's not going to be on this roster in 2025, taking up that cap hit. Any question about that, just look at his contributions the last few months. Like he's essentially an afterthought. I love this one. X-Wing again. Felt a lot more like a cohesive team. Can't gloss over this. the drama this week caused a lot of people to question the leadership on the coaching staff, the makeup of the locker room. Has Mike Macdonald lost this team? That question was asked by many people this week. I think it's clear today by the effort that we saw, by how hard they played, by how disciplined they played, by how prepared they seemed to be. They had a good plan for the 49ers, best plan we've seen in years. And they executed it. And they did it at every level. I think those of you questioning Mike Macdonald's ability to coach, maybe just take a pause on that coming out of this game. Blue and Green Zone, great contributor to the channel. Welcome back, man. After that game, feels like we have a shot at the NFC West. Hell yeah, we do. The Seahawks will be playing at home against Arizona 7 days from now with a chance to tie, well, for a chance to take the lead in the NFC West, because the first game, being their first game against the Cardinals, will be, they'll have the tiebreaker. Shout out to Koogski. Needed this one big time after last night. Yeah, Cougs lose on the last play of the game. That one is rough. Needed this one. It's been a 2-week period of nothing but losses. My fantasy teams, my Seahawks, my Cougs, some other non-sport stuff where wins and losses are important. Pretty much lost everything for the last 2 weeks. This was a big win. I have an eyewitness. I reacted to this game as emotionally at the end when Geno was crossing that goal line as I have to any game in probably, I don't know, 5-6 years. This one was a big one. I don't think you can understate how important this win was for the short term, for what it means that this team trying to win a division and get into the playoffs, and for the big picture in the long term, what they're trying to build. Richie V 333, Geno pulling rabbits. Geno's the magic man, not to be confused with Magic Johnson, of course. Again, if you're just tuning in, if you weren't watching earlier, like, I think regardless of how long Gino Smith is the quarterback here, and that's a discussion for another day, we'll continue to have it on this show. You just may, at the end of the day, have to live with some of these interceptions because he has that competitive streak where he wants to make something happen. And a lot of these interceptions that he's had the last 4 or 5 weeks that have been so costly are him trying to make something happen now, of showing impatience, and some of it might be him not trusting that the rest of the roster was going to come through either. Up until the Rams game, like, he knew he had to score almost every time he was on the field because the defense couldn't stop anybody. Maybe we'll see some of that get weaned out of his game a little bit if he starts to trust the performance of this defense. But even if he doesn't, I mean, let's go. I don't know. Let's just let's look at some NFL stats and see who's leading the NFL in interceptions right now. Let's throw it back up on the screen here because sometimes this is fun. It's Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Jordan Love. Jordan Love's getting $45 million a year. He's the franchise quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. They moved on from Aaron Rodgers, right? Sam Darnold was the darling of the league the first 6 weeks in leading the Vikings to, what were they, 6-0 at one point? 10 interceptions. Jared Goff and the high-flying Detroit Lions, maybe the best team in the NFC right now, maybe the best team in football. They hung 52 today on the Jacksonville Jaguars. 9 interceptions. Baker Mayfield, 9 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, ever heard of him? He's won a few Super Bowls, right? 9 interceptions. Kirk Cousins, 8. Dak Prescott, 8. These are guys making $50 million a year. And they're right there with Geno Smith. Sometimes you just have to live with those mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes come out of just being aggressive and trying to make something happen when maybe you feel like it's just not happening. Let's get back in here again. Talibai. Wow, maybe this could be the team we were waiting for. Let's go Hawks. Again, Macdonald not able to be hired until February because of the late run, the deep playoff run for the Ravens, the Seahawks, and the rules, and the NFL not being able to interview him earlier. Not being able to bring any of his top assistants with him from the Ravens because they were all poached by other teams, hired as defensive coordinators in Tennessee, in Miami, and Baltimore. Having to put a coaching staff together with odds and ends and pieces that had never worked together because other teams had already filled out their rosters. Not being able to be involved as a coaching staff with the scouting process. And they didn't go to the combine. They weren't involved in the draft process that much. They weren't involved as much in free agency because it happened so quickly. John Schneider had to basically assemble this roster based on a limited amount of information. And then just getting used to being a head coach. It's a transition. Everything that goes into it. What I've seen the last 2 weeks, and imagine how positive we would be feeling if we had pulled out that Rams game, which we should have had opportunities to win that game. Or even if that field goal goes through against the Giants, doesn't get blocked and returned for a touchdown. The Seahawks end up pulling that one out in overtime. And now you're talking about 6-4 and tied with the Cardinals going into this next game. It's a whole different ballgame, right? Schneider's legacy has been strong the first half, and now I think we're seeing Macdonald's fingerprints on the future. Let's take another zoom out view of this. Look at this roster right now. And let me just do this. Let's pull up the Seahawks depth chart. We'll share this again. Hold on. So let's look at the defensive side of the ball. Jaron Reed's on a 1-year contract. If the Seahawks want him back, I think he's an easy re-sign. And I don't think he's one that people haven't been talking about. I think he might be an important cog as just kind of a solid piece of this puzzle. Jonathan Hankins, 1-year deal. He's expendable because they have Byron Murphy not listed as a starter here. So let's go Reed, Murphy, Williams. Reed has to be re-signed. If he's not, you can probably fairly easily replace him. And maybe that guy's Roy Robinson Harris, acquired from Jacksonville in the trade, has 2 years left on his deal. It's been really solid. So basically your defensive line, you can bring back the 3 biggest pieces next year. Your outside linebackers, Derek Hall, Boye Mafe, are back on rookie deals still. Uchenna Nwosu, we'll find out. If he comes back, he's 100% healthy, he wants to rework his deal, he's back. Imagine adding him to this roster. Your inside linebackers, Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, what you saw today. Your corners, Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, what you saw today. And Trey Brown is listed as a starter on this list. You're probably not going to see him on the roster. He's on an expiring contract, but Josh Jobe has been a revelation. And then you have Nehemiah Pritchett, the 5th-round pick out of Auburn this year. Safeties. Kobe Bryant looks like a long-term starter and a fixture. Julian Love signed long-term. Your defense essentially comes back intact next year. And it's a group that we're seeing come together and play really well. And, of course, they're going to add to it. It still feels like a group that needs one more game wrecker. I think it needs a true nose tackle. That guy doesn't have to be a game wrecker, just a guy that occupies blocks, allowing Byron Murphy to play more of the 3 technique and move over a little bit, not have to play nose. And I feel like they need one more edge that's quicker, twitchier off the edge that can just beat a guy with speed. But this defense is playing really well right now, and you can essentially count on bringing this entire group back intact next year. And so then you look at the needs on the offense. It's offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. They're going to need to add to the tight end position. You're going to want to add a young receiver. It'd be nice to see a guy that can stretch defenses and beat teams deep a little bit. And then obviously you're going to make a decision about the quarterback. But it just changes your perception of what this team could be next year, doesn't it? If maybe the needs aren't as vast as it looked. If you were judging this team just based on the Buffalo Bills game, you might think complete teardown, complete overhaul, and rebuild was needed. Not after the last 2 weeks. Not at all. Figuring out mediocrity says, being in third and long for the umpteenth is forcing these high leverage situations that lead to poor decisions, poor outcomes, because there's no chance to win. It is unsustainable, therefore defensible. Okay. I mean, this feels like a case of cherry picking out of cynicism to just try to find negatives out of a really positive day. Just for the heck of it, let's go back and do this. Let's go back to the drive chart and let's look at third downs. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 22. Okay. And I know going into the Rams game, they had averaged 8.9 yards to gain on 3rd down. That was a horrible stat. Okay. That next drive, it was a 3 and out, basically 3rd and 10. On this next drive, they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plays without even facing a 3rd down. That's efficient. So yeah, then they faced a 3rd and 17, but they weren't even in a 3rd down situation up until that point. 3rd and 8, the long touchdown drive, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 4. Turn it over in downs after a 10-play drive, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 1. And then on the last touchdown drive to win the game, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 3. What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Dramatic improvement on 3rd down in this game. And then their overall numbers obviously still needs to get better. Mike Macdonald talked about it after the game, 6 out of 13. They faced a lot more 3rd and manageables in this game than they have up until this point this year. Let's see what else we got here, guys. Let's go down to let's see what some of the newest. Oh, here we go. Highlighted comment. Boom. Angry Bucket. Thank you so much for the super thanks. Really appreciate the support. I don't care. I'm over the Geno experience. He's just good enough to win 7 and 9 games. I'd rather be terrible for a season or two to rebuild instead of being mediocre every year. I get it. I get it. Like I said earlier, like it's such a romantic, exciting thought to find a young quarterback. But look at the hit rate. Man, I'm telling you, I could talk about this for 20 minutes right now, or you could go back and watch the conversation I had with Max Brown on Monday. Watch that episode. It's not easy to do. It's not easy. Now, if you build this roster to where this defense is dominant and they have an outstanding offensive line, that changes the equation. You can be more aggressive about stripping your roster of a veteran quarterback contract and going with a younger guy that you think has franchise potential because the margin for error is going to be smaller. He's going to have a better chance to succeed in that situation. What Gino Smith has done over the last 2.5 years with that pass protection is remarkable. And I'm telling you, man, be careful what you wish for. If you just want the Seahawks to jettison Geno Smith this offseason and go draft a guy, and let's say they draft, take your pick, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Shadir Sanders, Cam Ward. The hit rate on those quarterbacks, it's not great. And if Geno Smith goes to a situation with a team that's ready to win, Pittsburgh Steelers right now, just for an example. Russell Wilson's playing there, didn't play great today. Justin Fields has had his moments, but is not the kind of surgeon that you want playing quarterback in the NFL. They're both on 1-year contracts. They're going to be looking at their quarterback situation in the offseason. Are they going to want to give Russell Wilson a Kirk Cousins contract, or might they be interested? If Geno Smith hit the open market and he goes to the right situation, he throws for 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns and makes Pro Bowls and wins with that team, and you might be eating your words. Be careful what you wish for. Consider context, consider the situation. The interception sucked, but he's the main reason the Seahawks ended up making that game a win and not just, hey, we lost again to the 49ers, but there were some really positive signs. Yay. Let's hope that maybe we can be building something. I get it, but quarterback play in the NFL is not black and white, man. It's not black and white. There's only 3 or 4 guys in the entire league that every single team would give their quarterback up for. That's it. And this next quarterback class that's coming, there is no consensus on it. There is not a single sure thing. Not one. The bust potential of this next class is equal to 2021 when you had that Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Matt Corral. Be really careful what you wish for. Paulie signed up for a membership on the channel. Paulie, thank you so much for the support. Really, really appreciate it. B Film, this was a season-defining win. I'll say this. If the Seahawks finish 5-12, this is a game we can look back on as what they could potentially become. I know that sounds ridiculous, and they're not going to finish 5-12. This is a game you can build off of. And so maybe the word defining isn't that great. I would say this. I'll correct you. It was a season-changing win. How about this? It was a season redefining win. How differently do you feel now about what's ahead for this team than you did 8 hours ago? Kugski, if the offensive line and defense get better, Geno's good enough to get where they need to go. I think he's Kirk Cousins, man. And I think he's Jared Goff. If you put Geno Smith on that Detroit Lions team, I'll use the same example I did just a few seconds ago. He's throwing for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, and he's making the Pro Bowl. And this team's going deep in the playoffs, if not to the Super Bowl. I don't think he's any different than Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield or Kirk Cousins. That's the group he's in. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. None of these guys were taken top 5. You don't have to tear your franchise down to the studs, play QB roulette. That's the way it used to be. Man, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Watch the episode with Max Brown. We talk about this in depth at a level from a guy who's lived it, who's been there not that long ago, who now covers it as an analyst. NIL is changing the equation. Guys that you used to be able to get at the end of the first round, second round, third round are staying in college now because they're getting $5 million. You can't count on that anymore. You either have to be aggressive and take a guy early and risk the bust rate, or you're out. How many of you loved Spencer Rattler in the last draft and thought he would provide some value? How's that going? Paulie says, everyone but you, Kittle. Yeah, man, I'll tell you, rivalries are great. They really, really are. I mean, I grew up with the UW-WSU rivalry. And when I was younger, obviously the Seahawks were in the AFC West. And so it was the Broncos and the Raiders, and mostly the Broncos and the Raiders. The Chargers never really developed as a rivalry. But ever since they moved over to the NFC, it's been the 49ers, and there's been some epic games, and the Harbaugh-Carroll thing was legendary. And maybe this is the start of something. Maybe Macdonald versus Shanahan and McVay can really be something that carries forward and be a lot of fun. It's a team that's easy to hate. And, if you're just tuning in, like I said at the top of the show, I went into this game trying to be open-eyed and look at the big picture and not worry so much about whether they win it or not. Just wanted to see some progress and some building blocks and some signs. But once the game starts, it's different against this team. And it only took me a couple minutes to get pissed about something. It's a huge win. And it feels better if that exact same win had followed that exact same script against some non-conference opponent. It would have meant just as much in the standings, but it wouldn't have meant as much insofar as what you're trying to build here. And the score is a lot different. The style is a lot different, but this reminds me a little bit of that Rams game when they came to CenturyLink Field at the time and absolutely blew the doors off of the Seahawks. I think it was McVay's second year, really announced their presence. They sent a message today. They might not ultimately end up winning the division. They might ultimately end up not making the playoffs this year. But I think they gave a glimpse and they sent a message to the rest of the division about what Mike Macdonald could build here. I could tell that Abe Lucas was making a difference by Traveler and Ryder. You could. Man, nothing would be better than if he can play the rest of this year and stay healthy. And even you would assume as he gets more playing time, right? And he would get stronger, knock the rust off. It's almost as if they went out at the trade deadline and acquired a really good right tackle. Even if he never ends up being what we thought he might be as a rookie, what we saw today out of him made a difference, and it was better than anything else they ran out at right tackle earlier this year. Happy for him. I just can't imagine what a guy has to go through injury-wise to get through some of the things he did, but just really, really cool to see. Angry Bucket comes back again, says, I don't think you're hearing me. I'd rather play Zach Wilson and win one game for a season to try and draft a generational talent that wins 7 games a year and be stuck in purgatory. Tanking doesn't work. It doesn't work. Did it work for the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence? Did it work for the Dolphins and Tua? They're paying him $50 million a year now. What has that got them? Tanking doesn't work. It doesn't. It doesn't. Not in this class. I'm telling you, I've watched a lot of this class. I've talked to people that have studied it even more than I have. There isn't a guy worth even taking in the top 10, let alone a guy that you know as a rookie is going to be good, or there's not a single guy in this draft that any general manager would point to and say, I know he's going to be a guy. There isn't. There isn't. The best predictor of the future is the past. Look at the hit rate on first-round quarterbacks. You can go back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Go back as far as you want to. It sucks, and it's only going to get worse as these players decide to stay in college, make a career for themselves. Just punting because you think it's the right thing to do is a terrible decision. And I would hate for you to be the general manager of my team. If you know for sure and you have conviction about a guy, then do whatever you have to do, trade up to get him. That's what the Chiefs did. It's a great example of that. A lot of different opinions about him coming out of Texas Tech. That, maybe he was just a gunslinger. The technique was bad. The footwork was bad. The arm motion was bad. The decision-making, he was a gunslinger. The Chiefs had conviction about him, moved way up to get him, gave up a lot to go get him, and they were right. The Bills had conviction about Josh Allen, moved up to get him, and they were right. But some of these other teams that have played for the number 1 pick, how is Caleb Williams looking now? I kind of think he's garbage. You want to play for that? It's a terrible plan. Hope is not a plan. My good friend Jason Churchill tells me that all the time. Hope is not a plan. It's a terrible way to go. Like, look, and I don't just want to be a dick about this, okay? I would love nothing more than for the Seahawks to acquire a young quarterback that they can build around and have on a rookie contract and have long-term and find the next Josh Allen, the next Patrick Mahomes, the next Lamar Jackson. I would love that. Who is that guy? Where is he? Are you sure? How are you going to get him? What are you going to have to give up to get him? There isn't a guy in this draft worth moving up for. Not one. There's some guys I like, and if it falls a certain way, cool. But he's probably not going to be ready to play right away either. And you want to mortgage that future? The pain that usually ends up resulting in, are you willing to sacrifice the next 2 years? Which might get your coach fired, which might get your GM fired, and then you're starting over again. Look at the Bears. They gave up everything to get Caleb Williams. Now Shane Waldron's already been fired, and Matt Eberflus isn't far behind. I don't see him making it into next year, which only sets the development farther back, and now you're starting all over again. Just drafting a guy to draft a guy is a terrible, terrible plan. Let's see what else we got here. We're going kind of long here, but and I wanted to keep this positive. Ward's a top 10 pick, 100%. James Peters, I'm a Coug. There's things I love about Cam Ward. Love the arm talent, quickest release I've ever seen. Love his mobility and his creativity. His decision making at times makes Geno Smith look like the most conservative quarterback in the league. It's a concern. It's a big concern. And also he's got some mechanical issues. He throws flat-footed a lot, which causes the ball to sail high. There's a major boom potential with Cam Ward. There's also a huge bust potential with Cam Ward. So yeah, he's probably going to go, he could very well go top 10 because this is such a lean class. That doesn't make it a good idea. Kenny Pickett went in the first round because there was nobody else. How did that work out? James Peters says Caleb Williams isn't garbage. I don't see him running the quick game efficiently. I don't see him making the easy throws look easy. I still see him trying to play hero ball. I see issues with his mechanics. I see which causes issues with his accuracy. And now he's going to have a whole new coaching staff next year that's going to set his development behind. I think there's huge bust potential with Caleb Williams, which is why I didn't have him as my number one quarterback in the class coming out. I had Jaden Daniels. Yeah, and I don't want to, and James says Ewers is a top 10 pick too. Quinn Ewers may be my favorite quarterback in this class. I'm not sure he's a top 10 pick. If any quarterbacks go in the top 10 this year, it's because of a combination of teams being desperate and doing what Angry says they should do and just take a guy because you have to. And also because it's a weak class overall. Very few blue chip players. Had Rob Staten on Tuesday. He only had 9 guaranteed first round grades in this draft. I'm hearing that from other analysts as well. It's not a good draft. It's not a good draft. And so that might push the quarterbacks up just because teams are willing to take shots on them, and they're willing to give up on them earlier if it doesn't work out as well. And so, we'll just take a guy and see how it works out. So we'll likely have a quarterback or two taken in the top 10 this year. You're right, but not because in any other year they would be top 10 picks, but only because out of desperation. Shout out to James, who says he's walking his dog listening. Let's wrap this up, you guys. It's been an hour and 20. Got a bunch of you watching, bunch of you chimed in. Really, really appreciate this. We're going to talk a lot more about this during the week. It's a lot more fun to talk about a win than not, right? And then heading into the Arizona game, reach out to Walter Mitchell, see if I can get him on the show again this week. He's always really, really objective in how he looks at his Cardinals and properly preview that show. Also working on getting a time this week with Paul Moyer to join me and get his thoughts as well. That'll be exciting. So you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Seahawks Forever. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the program. Thanks, you guys. If you want to support the show, all the links are down in the description. Thanks for hopping on and giving me your comments and questions tonight. Let me know in the comments, what was your favorite part of the game? Is there anybody I didn't talk about that you think deserves some attention that you thought really stood out? And how do you feel going into this Arizona game? Do you think the Arizona Cardinals are legit or not? I am on record as saying that I have not been a Kyler Murray fan up till this year. He's changed my mind a little bit. I think he's a different quarterback since coming back from the injury. And that Drew Petzig offense is really interesting and will present a challenge for Mike Macdonald and that improved Seahawks defense for sure. Forever and always go Hawks. Thanks for watching, you guys. See you soon.